Hi everyone, welcome back to Cajun Avery. Now in today's video I've got a few different things for you. We're going to try and make it a little bit of a shorter video today because I've got a longer video for you next week, which will be coming from the Lancashire British Bird and Hybrid Club show, which is on Sunday, so really looking forward to that. Now today we're going to be looking at preparing the birds for the show bench. We're doing the last bit of preparation, including training them in the cages, the diet, and also the baths, and just how we're going to be spacing those out to make sure that they're in the best condition that we can get them ready for the show. We've also had a quick visit down south to a good friend, and we was there, and we've picked up a few new birds, which you're going to look at a bit today, but we're going to focus on that next week because we've got a few new birds coming in from the Lancashire show, which I'm picking up there, which are something really exciting, and we've just got a few other bits to look at today, so hopefully you enjoy today's video. To begin, I'm keen to show you the progress of the hybrid pairs. So if you remember from a few months ago or a few weeks ago now, it's been about 6 to 8 weeks since we did the initial pairing, and that's of the Mule and hybrid pairs. So we've got 4 Bullfinch hybrid pairs and a Goldfinch Mule pair. So we're going to take a look at each of those now today and see how they're getting on, my thoughts on them, and then is it worth making any changes? Are the pair compatible and are they getting on all right? So the first pair I want to look at is the clear white Norwich cock to a native Bullfinch hen. Now this pair have been getting on quite well. They have been sleeping together on the perches, they've been roosting together, so I'm really pleased with that. And I think that's a good sign, showing that the birds are comfortable with each other and overall they are a compatible pair. So what we've got to hope is that by having them together now through the winter, is that pair will bond better and they will click come the breeding season. It'll be probably April onwards that we expect the hen might go to nest. Bullfinches in the wild would generally go to nest about May time. In captivity, with the conditions being more favourable, food readily available, water, cleanliness, everything like that, generally April is when the bullies will go down. So we're hoping that pair will be ready by then. I think the Norwich will be ready by that point too. The next pair is the lesser red poll cross native Bullfinch hen. Again, they're compatible pair. They've been roosting together on the perch, which I think is a great sign. Considering they're comfortable together and they're huddling together at night, I think that's a really good sign. They clearly are comfortable with each other and they aren't bothered by each other's presence. So I think that's brilliant, and I'm really pleased with that. So it'll just be a case of seeing how that pair progress over the next few months, like I said, with the Canary Bully hybrid pair, and we'll just see how they get on, and fingers crossed they click. The next native Bullfinch pair is the Crossbill Bully. This is notoriously one of the most difficult hybrids to produce, especially with it being a Bullfinch, and especially with it being the Crossbill. You're doubling up the just how hard it is. So we've got that pair together, and it's mixed results, to be honest. Sometimes they look at each other, but that's the best that comes from them. And you might have seen my post a few weeks ago on natives in Norwich, is that literally the best thing we get out of them is that they look at each other. They don't sleep on the same perch, they don't roost on the same perch, they don't really feed together, and they don't really interact, which is a shame. I've moved them to a different cage, so we've had a bit of a move about with them, and I've moved them into a larger one just to give them that space if there is any falling out. But I'm hoping they might click over the next few months. If not, we have got a Greenfinch cock spare, which we might try and do greeny native bully, but I'm not sure yet. Or if not, maybe we just try another pair of native Bullfinches, and we just try and breed a straight pair of bullies, and then we'll have 3 Bullfinch hybrid pairs and a Goldie Mule hybrid pair, and hopefully they click. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's something to look at, as they progress, and if by December there's no improvement, maybe we look at it and maybe they're just not a compatible pair. And that does happen with hybrids, and when you're pairing up, is you do get those odd birds that just aren't right for each other, and that's okay, and we can make an amendment where needs be. We also have the European Greenfinch cross Siberian Bullfinch hybrid pair, and I think that's a lovely looking pair anyway. They don't roost together on the same perch, or at least next to each other at night, but they definitely do, are looking more promising than the crossbill bully. They're getting on well, they do feed together. They're not squabbling or anything like that. They will go down to bath together, and I think overall that they're just taking a little bit more time than have the canary and the redpoll. But we're just going to have to see what happens with that pair. I think they're a lovely pair, and because they've actually molted out together, you know, the bully hen has been in with that same greenfinch and its brothers and sisters for a while. You know, it's been throughout the molt, so they are completely used to each other. I'm just hoping as they mature now, they're going to bond a lot better and hopefully click, and we've just got to keep his fingers crossed for that. Maybe we'll get something. So what I'd say is probably my most promising pair, and not because you know, of how bonded they are or anything like that. It's because it's notoriously an easier one, and that's a Goldie Mule pair. So you may recall a few months ago we looked at them. We've got a yellow Norwich hen, a clear yellow Norwich hen, with a native goldfinch, normal native goldfinch cock. They look a lovely pair. We've produced goldfinch mules from both of these birds, but not together in the same pairing. Last year, you know, the eggs were full of the canary, the Norwich hen last year with a goldfinch, and the other goldfinch has obviously got a daughter, Goldie Mule daughter, from a different Norwich hen. So I think they are compatible. They do seem to be getting on all right. I have seen him feed her once, but I didn't catch that on film. You know, it's very difficult, and I think I'd have to leave a camera up for a very long time and scroll through hours of footage just to find that if I was to try it. So hopefully we'll catch it as they bond a bit better through the next few months, and fingers crossed we might get something from next year. So I've mentioned that the Lancaster Show is obviously this weekend. I'm really looking forward to it. It's my first show of the season, so hopefully should be a good one. I'm hitting it hard. I'm taking 22 birds with me, all obviously natives, so just got to hope that it works and we get a good result, and you'll obviously be able to catch up with that next week on the channel. So for the birds that we're obviously taking, it's important to train them. I want them to be steady on the perches. I want them to work the perches well, and I want them to show themselves in a show cage. I don't want them to look at the back of the show cage. They need to be facing the front, and they need to be displaying themselves best as possible to the judge to hopefully catch his eye and make him pick that bird as the best in the class, or even for a special. So we took them out the other day. They've all had a run in their show cages for a good few hours, and obviously they've had the food in there, they've had the water in there, so they now all know exactly where they need to go for everything. They're comfortable in the show cages, and they have steadied down. Something I do is I do go close to the show cages as well. I look down at them. I might run my hand near them, not obviously on front of the grill, but just near them, just so they're used to that movement. And it is very important that you do something like that, because something simple like that can upset the birds, and if it upsets the birds, then they're not going to do as well in the show. So I'm just trying to get them as accustomed as possible to what a judge might do, so that they are ready for that. I know something that Keith Ferry had mentioned in a Canary Room episode was actually having glasses on. It's something like that can upset them. So it's something I'll need to obviously work on, is just making sure they are used to a few more things like that. Maybe even some rustling some paper in front of them, because if the judge is marking down what he thinks on his pen and paper, then you just want to make sure that the bird doesn't worry when he hears some paper flap or anything like that. Something very simple like that can upset them. So we've had them trained like that, and I think that's really important to do, to make sure that you've worked with them best, to make sure they are as best as you can get them. And hopefully it works for me, fingers crossed, and you'll see the results from that in next week's video. So then also with that, it's important that we make sure the birds are prepared. Other than that, so I made sure that they've all got the egg food drawers with the sort of show seed mix, and that's, I've done a video on that talking about the show mix, and the link will be up here somewhere if you want to watch that. And that's just a mix of fattening seeds and things like that to bring the oils out in the birds, make sure the feathers are in good condition, give the birds that bit of fat, mainly for the winter, because you want to breed birds that are the size and shape they are, because they've been bred that way, not been just fattened up like a chicken, you know, stuffing a turkey. You want to make sure that the birds are done as well as possible by breeding them and making sure that they do meet that standard through the breeding, rather than fattening them up too much, because not only is it, you know, it's you only adding that shape, by the fat, but also it's no good for the birds if you're ramming a load of fat into them and then burning it all off, and then you do that for a few years straight, the bird's liver will be knackered and it just doesn't do the bird any good. So I'm trying to make sure that they have enough for the winter fat stores, which they do need for the insulation in the cold weather and the energy stores that they're going to need like that, but also just to make sure that they do have a little bit on them for that reason. So it's also important you make sure the birds have got baths on. So I've tried to give them a bath, at least the show birds, they're getting a bath every 2 days, which is ideal. But then come the shows, well, it's a few days before the shows, and I want to make sure that they don't have any like wet appearance, anything that could let them down. So what I've done is I've made sure that the last bath those birds have is 3 to 4 days before the show. So it's currently, you know, the show's on Sunday, the last bath I'm going to be giving them is on the Thursday, and it gives them plenty of time to dry out and make sure they're all right like that. That's worked well for me. I think the birds are looking good. For the birds that aren't showing, well, I'm going to put baths on for those guys anyway. Keeps them happy, and just a bit of something for them to do as well. So just remember, if you are going to be showing your birds, don't put your baths on like the day before or that morning if it's early, because you could really ruin them and ruin their chances on the show bench. So it's time we pop outside and have a look at the new flights. So you saw the new flights a few weeks ago when I said we renovated the old ones. So these are the new style ones, and because it's winter now, the drafts get a lot more, it gets a hell of a lot colder, and the last thing I need is some wind chill taking the birds out. So what I've done is I've wrapped the flights in plastic like this. It's a clear plastic, the light can get through, they've got airflow throughout the roof, because we've got a gap underneath that, everything's fine like that. They do have a bit of airflow where there's this gap, but ultimately what this does is stops a horrible gale lashing at the birds as they're in the back here. In the summertime it's fine, the birds can get out of it, the flights are all planted out, they've got branches and everything in there, and I'm going to add some more of that now, but I've just been trying to keep on top of just keeping it clean at the moment as we've been moving a lot of birds about recently. And this has been really useful. Being able to do this is that it lets the light flit through, the birds are happy, and it just takes the edge off for the winters for them to keep them strong. And I just don't want to lose birds throughout the winter through something unnecessarily and maybe negligent if I didn't add this. So just making sure, but also it is actually useful for the avian flu. I know at the moment there's avian flu going about, a highly pathogenic strain of it, so it's very contagious within the birds. So obviously I do not want that in my stud, because if any bird gets that, all of the birds will be culled without question on my property. So that would mean I'd lose everything, and that would be disastrous, that would be terrible. So also having something like this, not only is the roof plastic, we've covered the roof in a plastic, and that's always been for a few years now, having this, just that bit of extra protection so that my birds and the wild birds can't interact with each other, there's no cross-contamination, and we hopefully should neither have a problem with avian flu by doing something like this. So the weekend that's just gone, I was being very kindly invited by Mark Jones to go up to a guy called Ron Pemberton. Some of you may know him, he's a native bird man, and he's just got some fabulous looking birds anyway. And what Mark does, and Ron and a few other guys, is they'll swap the birds between them, take what they want and make sure that everything they're happy with, to build a stud together rather than on their own. So what they can do is have a lot more birds across a few spread out places rather than one stud of birds all in one place, and it's great, and it's really useful. And they kindly invited me down to come and look at the birds. Mark was so kind to me and really helped me out with showing me what he's looking for in the birds, the colour of the birds, the shape of the birds. The size is something that he doesn't look at as much, because obviously a huge bird that's a greenfinch like they were a few years ago, so I've been told, were massive birds, but they're all grey, so they weren't even good coloured. And what Mark does is he wants to make sure that if they are a bit smaller, they've got the shape, they've got the feather, and they've got the colour. And that's exactly what I think I'm going to be doing a lot of, is I want to make sure the birds have got that size so that they have a chance on the show bench, but I don't want big dull birds. I want maybe even, you know, smaller but really well coloured, good shaped birds, and that's, you know, that's important. So I've been following a bit of Mark's advice on that and having a look at what Mark's been doing with, you know, that. So we've been sorting siskins, goldies, greenies, red poles, crossbills, all sorts of things like that. Really good fun. And you know, they were kind enough to give me a few birds as well. So we're going to have a closer look at those next week, because we're bringing on some new birds from the Lancaster Show, which you're going to be very excited with, because I've managed to get a pair of something which I've been trying to get all of for ages, and finally managed to get some. So massive thank you. But we'll look at those next week. But what I brought back from Ron's and Mark's was a pair of Greenfinches. We've got a cockbird that's really well coloured. The shape's good and the size is good. You know, it's nowhere near as big as what you'd see on the show bench sometimes, but the colour is fantastic on that bird, and I think it's great. What a credit to Mark, and he's very kindly gave that to me. So that's good, and we're going to try and put that into the stud next year. We're putting it with a good greeny hen with a bit more size into it to merge them and hopefully get a good result. We also came back with a nice chocolatey green greeny hen. A chocolatey brown greeny hen, and it's a lovely looking bird again. So something to look forward to seeing next week, and something to look forward to putting into the stud. And then finally, and this is almost unheard of, I was given a native bullfinch hen as well. They got 2 hens and said, Ollie, if you want one, take one. So I took one, and you know, massive thank you for that. So we've got another native bullfinch hen in. So our current bullfinch stock levels are at 5 hens. We've got 4 natives and 1 Siberian, and we've got 2 native bully cocks. What a ratio that is. And we might, you know, we'll definitely be trying a pair of native bullies next year with one of the cockbirds we've got, but maybe we do 2 pairs of native bullies, as I'd spoken about you know, earlier on in this video, depending on what happens with the crossbill greeny hybrid pair. So also, I would recommend checking out the Cajun Avery Bird magazine from this week and last week. I was in it this week again, and we're talking about the red poles and seeing how they're getting on, and also the ideas for mules and hybrids next year. So all sorts of different things on that. And I'm in the Cajun Avery, I'd say probably once or twice every 2 months. So you'll see me in it throughout there. Massive thank you to Dave Brown who sorts that out for me. You know, and it's great. I really enjoy writing for them as well, and trying to make a difference in the hobby, trying to contribute as much as possible, and trying to get more young people involved, because it seems to be something that's lacking. I know that when I turn up to a show, a lot of the times I tend to be the youngest guy there. Yeah, nothing against anyone obviously, but at 19 I am probably the youngest guy there, and you do get the odd junior. And I'd encourage anyone, especially younger people, if you are watching this video and you want to get into British birds, please contact me, and I'll do my best to sort you out with some, whether it be from myself or whether it be from a friend. Juniors as well, we want to try and get as many people in the hobby, so please do get in touch if you want to join in, and we'd really appreciate it and love to see you at the shows. Anyway guys, that brings us to the end of this week's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Bit of a shorter video today, looking at a few different things. So next week we're coming from the Lancashire British Bird Mule and Hybrid Club. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm hoping I might be able to steward as well. I have actually got to call Terry soon and just check with him if that's all right. But I'm hoping to steward, take a load of clips for you through that and the judging process, and actually what it's like doing the stewarding. And we're going to have a really good look around the show hall, look at all the British on, and Norwich. I believe there's a Norwich in the show as well. And we'll have a look at the top bench and see what's placed there. Fingers crossed some of mine placed there as well. I really hope so. I've put a lot of effort into them, and I think they're good birds. So we're going to see how they perform. But anyway, guys, if you've enjoyed this video, you'd like to see more, smash subscribe down below so you get to follow along with all my new content. Hit the like button. I'll see you in the next video.